I wanted to see if we could cover also sort of the third dimension of sort of data protection, the integrity of data, right? And you mentioned at the very beginning, Ryan, a very important sort of game-changing technology. We kind of take it for granted now, of course, all of us in the technology world, immutable backups, right? Can you maybe just define what that is, and then maybe I'll play with an example or two based on your definition.
Sure. Immutable backups is your backups that effectively can't be deleted and destroyed, right? If you think about it, and I keep saying like back in the day, right, versus now, but still people use some of this technology today, where they could be taking your backups and just backing up to a regular file system, into a folder share, let's just say, and here are all your backups in a folder share. But if an intruder gets into your system and they have access to that folder, delete, right, or encrypt, then all of that is gone, right? So there's different types of technologies out there. Like, for example, I see a lot of things like immutable storage. So you can buy this purpose-built appliance. Object storage has this immutability. You send it to the cloud and they have these immutable backups, right? For us, in our case, in that vStore, actually has, our vStore is software defined, so you can deploy on any hardware or virtual appliance, and it actually has this built-in immutability. But it is very, very important, because if an intruder gets in, you don't want them to just delete all of your backups, right? You have this ability to say, here's the integrity of this. It hasn't been modified. It hasn't been changed. It has a set retention. That's the retention period in which it can go ahead and remove this specific copy. Nobody else can effectively remove it. So I kind of hope that sets the stage for you.
Yeah, no, it's a game changer. I mean, and it's funny, I use the same exact terminology sort of back in the day. I mean, we've sort of become used to some of this technology being every day, but there are still a lot of companies, a lot of organizations that don't use it, or they don't take full advantage of it. Where we started to see sort of the problem side of the immutable backups before they really became pervasive was with poisoning of the backup files, right? The threat actors would use the backup, and if they had sort of non-segregated access to it, they'd use that pathway to poison the backup with malware, poison it with some of the ransom encryption techniques and so forth. And you would sort of have to reverse engineer the backup, because you didn't have that immutability, right? You didn't have that true write once capability. You just have to find your way through the history to something that still had high integrity, and then you would lose a huge amount of recovery point, back to the recovery point objective, because of that poisoning. So I think it was a game changer, and of course now we take it for granted. There's also sort of the scenario of data integrity being challenged over time without really a demand or any sort of ransom until after it already has been poisoned enough to where the backups have gone past the recovery points, they have gone to past the histories and so forth, where I think we see emerging threats, emerging sort of risks around data sets being altered. For example, in healthcare, if we take healthcare as an example, say patient records are altered with the dosages or the amount of medicine or the type of diagnosis or the type of blood types, and they're simply altered. They're not encrypted. They're altered, obviously for nefarious reasons over time, and as a result, the integrity of data is so dramatically altered, say over 6, 9, 12-month period, that the only way to recover from that is from having those true immutable backups in place and being able to piece the data together and resolve those integrity issues. Because otherwise, it's an absolute disaster, right? And that's what some of the threat actors are preying on is, if I'll start modifying your data, and 6 months later I come back and say, hey, I've made a bunch of changes. I'm not going to tell you what they are. Good luck. And by the way, if you pay me, this huge amount of money, then I'll find a path to piece it back together for you. That's a significant risk, right? And there are some industries that are really concerned about that, and for the right reasons. And I think true sort of immutability or immutable data backups and the technology that's there, and the ability to connect those good backups and build the path to recovery is incredibly important. And I think that's what you guys and the rest of the sort of the storage and backup industry is doing to prevent threats like that, right?